The search for two missing children in Nova Scotia is now in its third week. Nova Scotia RCMP say they are determining their next steps after another ground and air search for 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan took place over the weekend. The siblings went missing from their Lansdowne Station home May 2nd, and police say they have found zero trace of what happened to these two children. For more on where the investigation stands this morning, we're joined from Midland, Ontario by Chris Lewis, CTV public safety analyst and former OPP commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll remember the press conference where the police called off a portion of their search for Lilly and Jack on Sunday evening. What could that indicate where this investigation stands as of today?
Well, when they made that call to downscale the search, at that point they made statements that they didn't believe the children would still be alive, which was somewhat concerning because it hadn't been that long at that point. Of course, it has gone much longer now. They are continuing some searching, but it appears that they're weighing more heavily on the investigative side of this, which of course they're not going to really talk about, given the trying to protect the integrity of that investigation. But they seem to be focusing more on that than actually trying to recover the children, which of course I'm sure they still will, because regardless of whether they're alive or dead at this point, it's awful to even say that, they certainly do want to recover the remains of the kids.
You know, people are going back over this timeline, you know, as our police as part of their investigation. Lilly and Jack were first reported missing May the 2nd, and then a non-stop multi-agency search began on the very same day. Then on May 7th, police scaled back that investigation and added that the chances of the children being alive, as you just mentioned, were very low. Then after that, May 17th and 18th, there's this renewed ground and air search of Lansdowne Station. That didn't find any evidence. Tell us what that means about the scope of this investigation. Is it narrowing in on something?
I think what it means really is that the RCMP know more about this than we do, which is totally understandable. The RCMP are good at this sort of thing. I mean, they've been conducting huge searches and conducting major investigations for a long, long time. So we have to rely on them and the fact that they know what they're doing. They're led by their investigation. I'm sure they're following evidence and deciding where to go and what to do based on that, as well as tips and other things that they're receiving. But, you know, the speculation in the community and on social media is just crazy, you know, pointing fingers at all sorts of people, which may have had nothing to do with this. So we really have to let the RCMP continue doing what they do well.
Chris, I want to ask you about that because people watching this morning have probably read some of those social media posts, and you're right. They, you know, in an information vacuum, I have learned that people begin to fill it in with their own detective work and their own sleuthing and trying to put together clues on their own. What kind of a challenge does that kind of attention bring to a case like this?
Well, it certainly brings attention to it, and bringing attention to it at times isn't a bad thing because it may generate some tips from the public. But, you know, it's really a lot of pushing the RCMP into a corner in terms of trying to get them to say X or Y about who they suspect or what they suspect, and that's not fair to them. They just need to be able to do what they do without that sort of pressure on them. At the same time, it's putting pressure on people because, you know, folks are saying, well, when she said this, when he said that, you know, they're pointing fingers and it may be towards very innocent people. So in fairness to them and the RCMP, that we just need to back off on that and let things happen.
You know, one of the things, Chris, that comes up as well is the fact that if this story perhaps had happened in a bigger center, one of the major, you know, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver, this would be a story that would be headlines every day. 2 young children disappeared without a trace, a massive investigation, yet it doesn't seem to have that kind of attention here in Canada. Is it because of the smaller community? Like, what would your insight to that be?
Well, I think it would be because of the smaller community. As we know, the news cycle and the number of news outlets in a place like the Greater area are just, you know, so much bigger and more powerful than the smaller arm in Eastern Canada. So that certainly is part of it. You know, down there, I know, and I know people in Nova Scotia that, I mean, they're very, very touched by this.
Yeah.
But there's a fairly small population there comparatively. So it doesn't seem to be receiving the same amount of interest, which is sad in many, many ways, and in reality in others, I suppose.
Chris, what are you watching for in the next couple days?
Well, I'm waiting for the RCMP to make some sort of an announcement that they've either located the children or they've made an arrest. I mean, they're really looking at the who, what, where, when around all of this and following tips and leads. And I think that big piece of that is a big machine that's happening without us seeing it. And that's the way it should be. But I think we'll hear something from them in the days to come.
Chris Lewis, CTV public safety analyst and former OPP commissioner. Always great to have your insights. Thank you.
You too. Good morning. Take care.
Yeah, you take care too.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.